Hello, and welcome to the Snoozy Scientist, a calm corner of the universe where we wander through the mysteries of science, one sleepy yawn at a time. Tonight, we're slipping beneath the waves into a world far more mysterious than anything above. Down here, sunlight fades to darkness within a few hundred feet. Pressure builds to levels that would crush steel. The silence is deep and endless, broken only by the slow, patient rhythm of life. In this hidden world, evolution has shaped minds that are nothing like our own. Some minds here are capable of solving puzzles, escaping from locked containers, navigating mazes, playing games, and even recognizing the faces of the humans who study them. They learn from experience, and yet they are nothing like us. Some of these creatures communicate in light, pulsing complex bioluminescent signals across their skin to coordinate group hunts in the pitch black abyss, a living language written in flashes and patterns. Others demonstrate a trait once believed to be uniquely human: episodic memory, the ability to recall the what, where, and when of events. Down here, intelligence has taken a completely different path, shaped not by forests or open plains, but by darkness and pressure, scarcity and survival. What makes this even more extraordinary is that these minds did not evolve alongside ours. They share no direct lineage, no common ancestor with our way of thinking, and yet it is intelligence all the same, curious, playful, strategic, and astonishingly complex. But how is it possible that creatures with no bones, no language, and lifespans measured in mere years can plan, solve, and remember? What does it mean when minds so alien think in ways that feel so familiar? And if thinking, dreaming minds can emerge in a world where sunlight never shines, what other kinds of intelligence might be waiting in places we have yet to explore? Tonight, we'll drift gently into these mysteries, exploring how intelligence emerges in the most unexpected corners of our planet, and why the most extraordinary minds on Earth might not be found above us, but far below. But before we begin, if you enjoy these slow, soothing journeys into science and wonder, I'd love it if you gave this video a gentle like and perhaps tap subscribe. It helps more curious minds discover this peaceful little corner of the internet, and it lets the algorithm know that sleep and science belong together. And if you're feeling kind, let me know in the comments, where are you listening from tonight, and what time is it there? It's always a joy to see how far this sleepy voyage travels. Now take a deep breath, let your shoulders relax, and let's begin. Intelligence is a word we often use to describe something quick, something sharp, a flash of insight, a perfect answer. But in the natural world, intelligence wears many faces, and few of them are fast or loud. In the deep sea especially, intelligence unfolds slowly. It creeps, it waits, it feels its way through the dark. At its most basic, intelligence is not a single trait. It is a collection of abilities working together. Scientists look for certain patterns to understand whether a creature is truly intelligent or simply following instinct. One of the first signs is problem solving. Can an animal face a new challenge and come up with a solution it has never seen before? Can it open a container, navigate a maze, or find a hidden exit? These small tests reveal a brain that can experiment and adapt rather than simply react. Memory is another window into the mind. Not just remembering a face or a place, but remembering something specific from the past, something that can be used again in the future. If a creature learns that one shell is safer than another, or that a certain path leads to food, and then recalls that knowledge later, it tells us something important. It means the mind can hold on to experience and apply it in new ways. Communication is also part of the picture. This does not always mean sounds or language. It can mean light, motion, posture, or color. In many marine species, Especially those that live in groups, communication is how individuals share warnings, coordinate behavior, or maintain social bonds. Even simple signals can hint at complex internal processes. Then there is tool use, one of the most fascinating signs of higher intelligence. When an animal picks up an object, not just to hold it, but to use it, something remarkable is happening. Whether it is a fish using a rock to crack open a clam, or an octopus carrying coconut shells for future shelter, this kind of behavior shows foresight. It shows planning. And finally, there is adaptation, not just physical changes passed down through evolution, but mental flexibility in a single lifetime. Can a creature learn from its environment? Can it change its strategy when something goes wrong? Can it solve the same problem in a different way if the conditions shift? This kind of flexible thinking is rare, and it reveals a deeper form of awareness. Scientists measure these traits through careful observation and experimentation. They set puzzles, track choices, and watch how animals respond when the rules change. But measuring intelligence is not easy. It requires patience, humility, and a willingness to see intelligence in unfamiliar forms. A crow solving a multi step puzzle, a dolphin recognizing itself in a mirror, a cuttlefish choosing to wait for better food rather than grabbing the first thing offered. Each of these acts suggests a kind of mental life, but the deep sea asks us to widen our understanding even further. Down there, where food is scarce, danger is constant, and the environment is unforgiving, intelligence does not look the way it does on land. It is not loud or showy. It is quiet, calculated, and deeply tuned to the rhythm of the water. The creatures that thrive in this darkness must solve problems without vision. They must memorize shifting currents, learn the feel of prey in the water, and adapt to a world where change can be sudden and survival depends on precision. Many live alone, so they cannot rely on group learning. Their minds must gather and store knowledge independently. For some, communication happens in pulses of light or subtle changes in skin texture. For others, the strategy is silence and camouflage. Intelligence in the deep often means knowing when not to move, when to hide, when to wait. It is a kind of thinking shaped by pressure and patience. In these depths, where every mistake can be fatal, the brain becomes a tool not for dominance, but for endurance. It learns slowly, but it learns well. It builds an internal map of danger and opportunity. It adapts not just to the environment, but to its own limitations. Some creatures live only a few short years, yet within that time, their minds achieve remarkable things. When we look at intelligence in this way, not as a measure of speech or schooling, but as the quiet art of survival, the deep sea begins to shimmer with possibility. It reminds us that the mind does not need sunlight to grow, it only needs time, challenge, and a world worth understanding. Far beneath the familiar world of waves and weather lies a place most life will never see. There is no sunlight to guide the way, no sound of wind or birds, no trees, no seasons, no sky, just water, thick and heavy, pressing in from every direction. The deeper you go, the more that pressure grows. At certain depths, the weight of the sea could crush a human submarine like a tin can. Yet here, in this cold and silent world, life endures. It does not just survive, it changes, it adapts, it thinks. The deep ocean is one of the harshest environments on Earth. Food is scarce, temperatures hover near freezing, the light fades completely just a few hundred feet down, and the darkness that follows is eternal. Creatures must learn to navigate a world where they cannot see, where they might go days or weeks without a meal, and where every movement carries risk. In such a world, intelligence becomes more than a luxury, it becomes a tool. In other parts of the planet, animals may rely on speed, strength, or sight. In the deep sea, those things fade. Sight means little where there is no light. Speed is less useful when energy must be saved at all costs. Instead, evolution begins to favor minds that can solve problems, remember past events, and plan ahead. The deep forces creatures to become quiet thinkers, slow strategists. Some fish in the abyss have evolved special sensory organs to detect faint movements in the water, allowing them to track prey without ever seeing it. Others have developed chemical senses that let them follow the trail of a distant meal through darkness. These abilities require more than instinct. They demand brains that can interpret complex patterns, that can learn from each encounter and adjust behavior accordingly. The crushing pressure also plays a role in shaping how creatures live and think. With every 100 feet of depth, the weight of water increases. Down in the Hoddle trenches, miles below the surface, the pressure is more than 1,000 times greater than at sea level. Muscles, bones, and even proteins must be specially built to endure it. For many creatures, motion becomes slow and deliberate. Every action has a cost. Energy is precious. There is no room for waste. This slowness encourages careful thinking. A predator may only have one chance to catch a meal. A mistake could mean days of hunger. Over time, species that make better choices, that learn from failure, that remember success, begin to thrive. Evolution starts to reward those with minds tuned not for instinct alone, but for adaptation. The deep sea is also vast and broken into scattered pockets of habitable space, a ridge here, a vent there, small areas where life clusters in the dark. Many creatures live in total isolation from others of their kind. This solitude leads to specialization. Each species becomes perfectly shaped for its narrow role. Some feed only on the soft rain of dead matter falling from above. Others live near volcanic vents, feeding on bacteria that turn heat into life. These extreme niches demand unusual solutions. A shrimp that lives near boiling water must know how to sense temperature changes to avoid being cooked. A snail that feeds on sulfur-rich minerals must know how to stay balanced on the edge of danger. The ability to fine-tune behavior to a very specific environment becomes a form of intelligence in itself. Without large social groups, many deep-sea creatures cannot rely on imitation or instruction. They must learn everything on their own. They must explore, test, remember, and adapt without help. In this way, isolation encourages the growth of individual problem-solving skills. Each creature becomes its own teacher, its own student, navigating a quiet world full of subtle challenges. When energy is scarce, mistakes are deadly, and change is constant, the mind becomes a lifeline. It helps a creature sense what is hidden, remember what is dangerous, and plan for what is not yet come. Evolution in the deep does not just shape the body, it carves the mind, slowly and silently, into something precise, efficient, and deeply aware of the world around it. In the quiet folds of the sea, hidden among rocks and coral and drifting sand, lives a creature unlike any other. Its body is soft, boneless, and ever changing. It can vanish in an instant behind a cloud of ink, or slip through a hole no wider than a coin. Its skin shimmers with color, not for beauty, but for survival. It is the octopus, and within its strange shape lies one of the most unusual minds on the planet. Unlike most animals, the octopus has not just one brain, but many. At the center of its body, between its eyes, sits a donut-shaped brain. This brain is the command center, where choices are made and information is stored. But the octopus does not rely on this brain alone. Each of its 8 arms contains its own cluster of neurons, a kind of mini brain that can think, act, and remember all on its own. These arms are not like limbs in other animals. They are more like independent explorers. They can feel, taste, and make decisions without waiting for the central brain to tell them what to do. If an octopus loses sight of something, but one of its arms finds it again, the arm may begin reacting before the rest of the body even notices. In this way, the octopus is not a single mind, but a gathering of minds working together. Scientists estimate that the octopus has over 500 million neurons in total. That is more than many mammals, including cats and dogs. What makes this even more remarkable is how those neurons are spread out. Around two-thirds of them are located in the arms. This means that most of what the octopus learns and understands is not stored in its head, but in the limbs that move and touch and explore the world around it. If an arm is severed, it can still respond to touch for a short time. It may even curl away from pain or reach toward familiar textures. This does not mean it is alive in the usual sense, but it does mean that the arms hold more than just muscle. They carry memory, reaction, and instinct inside their own networks. This strange design gives the octopus an unusual kind of intelligence. It can multitask in a way that few creatures can. One arm might be opening a shell, while another explores a new hiding place. Others may stay curled in defense or search for food beneath a stone. The central brain oversees the whole operation, but it does not need to control every motion. The arms can decide for themselves. In experiments, octopuses have been seen reaching into small containers to retrieve food, using just one arm to feel around inside, sometimes for several minutes at a time. The arm twists and curls, bending like a sentient ribbon, hunting by feel alone. What is striking is not just the movement, but the precision. The arm seems to know what it is doing. It learns with every pass. Even more curious is the way octopuses explore unfamiliar objects. They do not just poke and prod, they grasp, hold, and pull. They move each arm differently, as if testing possibilities. One may lift while another presses, one may curl while another flattens. It is not random, it is searching, comparing, remembering. This is not simple reflex, it is investigation. When octopuses rest, their arms do not go still all at once. One may twitch, another may stay curled, and a third may stretch slowly in the water. Even sleep seems to be a conversation between brain and limb, between body and mind. In nature, this kind of decentralized control is rare. Most animals keep their thinking tightly within the skull, but the octopus chose another path. Its intelligence spreads out into its body, filling each arm with its own kind of awareness. This makes it faster in some ways, more flexible in others. It can act without delay. It can think with more than just a head. To study the octopus is to study a mind, not bound by bone or symmetry, a mind that splits and reunites, one that thinks through touch, one that feels the world, not just with senses, but with movement itself. In its arms, intelligence becomes a thing that crawls, that curls, that reaches, a thing that wanders, a thing that learns. In the still corners of marine labs, under soft lights and behind thick glass, researchers have watched the octopus do something unexpected. Not something instinctual, like hunting or hiding, but something stranger, something playful, something clever. With no one telling it what to do, the octopus has taken apart its surroundings piece by piece, solving puzzles and inventing games with the patience of a quiet genius. In one experiment, a researcher dropped a crab inside a jar. The jar was sealed tightly with a screw-on lid. A human child might struggle with it, but after a moment of stillness, the octopus reached out with a single arm and began to explore. It twisted the lid, paused, adjusted, and tried again. Slowly, methodically, the lid came loose. The crab inside never stood a chance. This was not just a single event. Again and again, octopuses have been presented with similar puzzles. Some open containers with sliding latches. Others push levers, lift lids, or untie knots. Each task requires memory, coordination, and persistence. The animals do not simply guess, they try, fail, try again, and learn. In another setting, scientists built a small underwater maze. It had paths that branched and curved, some leading to dead ends, others to food. The octopus would glide forward, test one route, then turn back and try another. Over time, it began to move more directly, as if remembering which path led to reward. One octopus in captivity was given a floating bottle with food sealed inside. It spun the bottle with its arms, examined the ends, then pulled the stopper free with surprising delicacy. In another case, an octopus disassembled part of the filtration system of its tank. Piece by piece, it pulled apart the tubing not out of hunger or fear, but simply because it could. These experiments were never about performance or reward. Often the food came only after the challenge had been solved. Sometimes there was no food at all. The octopus continued anyway, not out of habit but out of interest. There are stories of octopuses that play with objects even when nothing is at stake. One individual was observed taking a plastic bottle cap and repeatedly pushing it into a gentle current, then catching it again. Over and over it played this game, like a child tossing a ball. Another was seen using its siphon to jet shells across the floor of its tank, watching them roll and spin. And while no two octopuses behave exactly the same, some begin to show patterns that hint at something deeper. In controlled studies, researchers have found that different individuals respond to the same situation in different ways. Some are bold. They rush forward, grab quickly, explore with energy. Others are cautious. They wait, watch, and move slowly. Even their reactions to being handled differ. Some resist, some freeze, some seem to tolerate it. These are not random behaviors. They are traits consistent across time. In humans, we call this personality. In animals, it is still debated, but with octopuses, the evidence keeps growing. In one lab, an octopus developed a habit of squirting jets of water at a specific researcher, not at others, just that one. The person had startled the octopus during an earlier interaction. The animal did not forget. Day after day, as the researcher approached the tank, the octopus aimed and fired. Then there are the escape artists. Stories of octopuses slipping out of tanks are more than legend. Some wait until night, then slide through tiny gaps in their enclosures. They cross dry floors, locate another tank filled with fish, help themselves to a midnight snack, then return to their own tank before morning. At the National Aquarium of New Zealand, one octopus named Inky became famous for such an escape. He managed to lift the lid of his tank, wriggle out, slide across the floor, and disappear down a narrow drain pipe that led to the open ocean. When the staff arrived the next morning, he was gone. These moments are not tricks, they are glimpses. A twist of a jar lid, a path remembered, a choice made. Each one a small piece of a much larger puzzle scattered across the ocean floor. And in the center of that puzzle, arms reaching, mind unfolding, is the octopus. Quiet, watchful, and still thinking, in the quiet folds of the ocean, where light filters down in silver ribbons, there drifts a creature with skin like shifting silk. Its body can change shape and color in the blink of an eye. One moment it blends into sand, the next it glows with bands of white and brown, pulsing like a thought made visible. This is the cuttlefish, a master of disguise, a careful hunter, and perhaps something more. At first glance, the cuttlefish may seem like a mystery wrapped in soft muscle and shimmer. Its body is short and rounded, with arms held close like a bundle of secrets. Its eyes are shaped like W's, and they see the world in a way no human can quite imagine. But what lies behind those eyes has caught the attention of scientists again and again, not just for how it sees, but for what it remembers. Cuttlefish have shown signs of something rare in the animal kingdom. It is called episodic memory. This is the ability to remember not just a fact or a place, but a full event. What happened, where it happened, and when. Humans rely on this kind of memory every day. We remember where we parked the car, when we last saw a friend, or what we ate for breakfast yesterday. For a long time, scientists believed only humans, and maybe a few birds and mammals, could do this. Then came the experiments. Researchers began by feeding cuttlefish two types of food, one they liked and one they loved. The loved food, like shrimp, was only offered after long waits. The liked food, like crab, was always available right away. Over time, the cuttlefish learned the rhythm. They remembered that if they waited long enough, the shrimp would come. So they ignored the crab and stayed still. They held back for the better meal. This might sound simple, but it is not. It means the cuttlefish remembered what food appeared, where it appeared, and how much time had passed. It used this memory to make a decision about the present based on an experience from the past. Not instinct, not repetition, memory. In another experiment, cuttlefish were trained to hunt in specific places at specific times. Shrimp would appear on one side of the tank in the morning, and crab would appear on the other side in the afternoon. After several days, the shrimp were taken away, but each morning, the cuttlefish still moved to that same side, even though the food was no longer there. They remembered the pattern. They remembered the time. This kind of memory suggests a deeper kind of awareness. The cuttlefish is not just reacting to smells or shadows. It is recalling experiences. It is tracking time. It is making choices based on what it knows, not just what it feels. What makes this even more remarkable is how short their lives are. Most cuttlefish live for only 1 or 2 years. In that time, they must grow, learn, hunt, and survive. They must make decisions with care and speed. Every day counts. There is no time for trial and error. The brain must be sharp. Some scientists believe this is why their memory is so strong. In a short life, the ability to remember details quickly and clearly can mean the difference between catching prey or going hungry, between hiding in time or being seen, between life and death. Inside the cuttlefish's body is a brain large for its size, with lobes dedicated to learning and memory. The exact shape of its thoughts is still unknown, but the patterns of its behavior speak for themselves. It gathers information, it stores it, it uses it. The memory of the cuttlefish is not like a human's. It does not recall names or dates or stories, but it does remember moments. A shrimp here, a crab there, the silence between meals, the shape of a shadow. Piece by piece, these fragments form something close to a mental timeline, a quiet record of life beneath the waves. With each test, each trial, the cuttlefish reveals a little more, not just about itself, but about what a mind can be. A mind with no bones, a mind that forgets nothing, a mind that waits in stillness and sees everything. Far below the waves, where the sunlight fades into darkness, there is a different kind of language. It does not come from mouths or written words. It flickers across skin. It pulses like Morse code through the blackness. It is light, living light, and for squid, it speaks volumes. In the twilight zones of the ocean, where the water presses cold and the world is always dim, some squid have developed a way of speaking that has no sound at all. They use bioluminescence, a chemical reaction inside their bodies that creates glowing patterns of light. These lights shine from tiny organs called photophores, arranged in careful lines across their skin, especially along their arms, bellies, and heads. Each species has its own style. Some blink in rapid bursts, others shimmer in long, slow waves. A few create flashes so bright they startle predators or confuse prey. But for many squid, these glowing patterns are not just for defense, they are part of a silent conversation. In the open ocean, visibility is limited. Darkness swallows everything just a few meters away, so light becomes more than decoration, it becomes a message. Take the Humboldt squid, sometimes called the red devil. These large, muscular creatures hunt in groups, hundreds strong, rising from the depths at night to feed. To keep order in this swirling frenzy, they flash colors at each other not from bioluminescence, but by changing pigments in their skin through special cells called chromatophores. One moment their bodies are deep red, the next, they go pale white. These quick shifts create patterns like a strobe, flickering across the group. Researchers have watched them in controlled settings, noting how these patterns often occur during feeding or while approaching another squid. Some flashes appear to signal aggression, others seem to call for cooperation. The squid adjust their behavior in response. They watch, they react, they learn. Even more mysterious are the giant squid. Rarely seen alive, they dwell in the deepest parts of the ocean. Some scientists believe their enormous eyes and large photophores may play a role in communication, as well brief pulses in the pitch black to signal another of their kind. With so few observations, this remains only a theory, but the clues are there, etched into their biology. Bioluminescent squid, like the firefly squid, take this one step further. Their entire bodies can light up in intricate blue patterns. Thousands of tiny lights pulse in coordination, creating displays that ripple like underwater constellations. During mating seasons, these light shows intensify, suggesting courtship rituals that depend on rhythm, brightness, and timing. In the deep, these glowing signals allow squid to do what many thought impossible for invertebrates: coordinate, cooperate, and plan. Group hunting among squid is not a chaotic rush. In many species, it is a strategy. Individuals take positions, surround schools of fish, and drive them into tight balls. Then, one by one, they dart forward to feed, rarely colliding, rarely fighting. In the dark, this level of coordination would be impossible without some form of real-time signaling. And for squid, light fills that role. This kind of social intelligence is especially remarkable when you remember that squid are not mammals. They are not birds. Their brains are very different from ours. But they still find ways to work together, to share information, to signal needs and intentions. In laboratory tanks, squid have been observed watching each other. They mirror movements, they react to changes, they sometimes respond to unfamiliar individuals with hesitation, but seem to grow more comfortable over time. Even in artificial environments, the patterns of awareness and adaptation are hard to miss. Some species adjust their light output depending on who is watching. A squid may glow brightly on one side of its body while remaining dark on the other, as if sending one message to a rival and a different one to a friend. This kind of split signaling suggests a level of control and awareness that continues to surprise researchers. The more we learn, the clearer it becomes that squid do not simply live in the deep. They think in it, they communicate across it, not with sounds, but with pulses of living light. In the black waters where most creatures are blind, squid have invented a way to speak and to see each other through the glow of their own bodies. A language made not of syllables, but of shimmer. In most stories of intelligence, the heroes tend to look like us, mammals with sharp eyes, fast reflexes, and a backbone running straight through. We think of clever primates using tools, of dolphins communicating in clicks, of crows bending wires into hooks to reach their food. These creatures are familiar in a way. They are warm-blooded, social, and often expressive, and they all belong to a group called vertebrates, animals with a spinal cord and a centralized brain. But deep in the sea, in the soft, dark world below the reach of sunlight, there is another story unfolding. It is quieter, stranger, and much older. It belongs to the invertebrates animals without backbones, and their way of thinking evolved on a different path entirely. Among them are the cephalopods, octopuses, squid, and cuttlefish, creatures with skin that changes color in an instant, bodies that twist and stretch, and minds that defy simple explanation. They solve puzzles. They learn from experience. They adapt to unfamiliar surroundings with eerie precision. Yet they do all of this without a spinal cord. Instead of one single brain controlling everything, many cephalopods have decentralized nervous systems. This means that large portions of their neurons are spread throughout their bodies, especially in their arms or tentacles. In an octopus, for example, over two-thirds of its neurons are not in its head at all. They are in its limbs. These neurons allow each arm to act with a kind of local independence. The arms can feel, react, and even make simple decisions on their own. An arm can explore a crevice, adjust its grip, or react to touch without waiting for a signal from the central brain. It is almost as if the arm is thinking for itself. This kind of control system is rare among animals. In most vertebrates, information travels from the body to the brain, where it is processed and sent back as instructions. It is efficient in some ways, but it can be slow. If something goes wrong, the whole system might freeze or fail. In contrast, a decentralized system can continue functioning even if parts of the brain are damaged. In a dangerous, unpredictable environment like the deep sea, that kind of flexibility can be the difference between life and death. Vertebrates tend to specialize in central planning. Their brains act as command centers, gathering data and issuing orders. This works well in land animals that need to coordinate vision, balance, and movement all at once. Birds, for example, rely on fast, centralized control to fly through crowded forests or swoop in for prey. Mammals, too, use large brains to manage complex social interactions, territory, and memory. But for invertebrates, especially those living in the ocean, the challenges are different. The environment is fluid, objects move with the current, prey can vanish in the blink of an eye, surfaces are uneven, and danger can come from any direction. In this shifting world, distributed control offers unique advantages. An octopus arm exploring a rock ledge does not need to wait for approval from the brain to curl around a crab. It can feel the texture, sense movement, and respond immediately. The brain focuses on larger goals, planning the escape route, tracking multiple threats, or choosing which hiding spot to aim for. This does not mean these animals are less intelligent. It means they are intelligent in a different way. Their bodies are part of their minds. Their thinking is spread out. Imagine trying to tie a knot with one hand that you cannot see, while giving your attention to a completely different task. That is what some cephalopods seem to do. One arm may be opening a shell, another testing the water, while the eyes scan for danger and the brain weighs what to do next. The comparison with mammals becomes even more fascinating when you consider how short the lifespans of many cephalopods are. Some species live only a year or two. Despite this, they develop advanced behaviors, showing memory, planning, and even curiosity. Mammals and birds, with their longer lives, often require years to mature and learn. Cephalopods seem to come equipped with instincts, but also the ability to learn quickly in the brief time they have. Some scientists now believe this rapid learning is not just a byproduct of evolution, but a core part of it. In an environment where danger is constant and change is rapid, only the clever survive. But rather than copying the vertebrate blueprint, invertebrates invented their own way of thinking, flexible, distributed, and responsive. The deep sea does not reward brute strength or high speed. It favors those who can adapt, those who can feel their way through the dark and decide quickly, even if no orders come from above. Intelligence, it seems, does not need a spine. Sometimes it flows through soft limbs and quiet light. An octopus moves unlike anything else on Earth. It flows instead of walks, reshapes instead of runs. Watch one in motion, and it feels more like watching smoke underwater than an animal with a plan. 8 arms move with eerie grace, often with no clear pattern, sometimes doing different things at once. One slips into a shell, another curls over a rock, a third reaches gently toward a glimmer of light. At first glance, it may seem like all these movements are guided by a single brain issuing silent commands, as if the arms were just tools waiting for orders. But that is not what is happening, not entirely. Inside an octopus, the mind is not confined to the head. It is spread out, woven through the body, especially into the arms. Each of an octopus's 8 arms is packed with neurons, the tiny cells that process information. In total, an octopus has more than 500 million neurons, and more than half of them are located in its arms. These neurons are not just for sensing the world, they can also make decisions. Scientists once believed that brains always sit at the top of a nervous system like a control tower. But the octopus has forced a rethink. In some experiments, researchers gently separated a severed octopus arm from the rest of the body, something the animal can survive. The arm, still alive for a time, continued to react to touch. It reached, recoiled, even grasped objects. It moved with purpose, as if still connected to a will. Other studies showed that the arms can solve problems independently. One famous experiment involved a maze filled with tasty treats. Researchers allowed individual arms to explore the maze and locate the food, while the rest of the body was kept unaware of the layout. When later faced with the full maze, the octopus used the same arm to retrieve the reward more efficiently than before. The arm had learned, and the central brain had not been involved in that part of the process. The arms do more than just move and learn. They also feel in ways we might find strange. The suckers that line each arm can taste, not like a tongue exactly, but in a chemical way. When an octopus touches a surface, it is also sampling it, detecting chemicals in the water and on the object. This helps it understand its surroundings in a deeply physical, almost immersive way. Imagine exploring a room not just by sight, but by touching everything with fingers that can taste and decide. That is the world of the octopus. It does not just observe, it engages. This raises questions that stretch beyond biology and into philosophy. If the arms can sense, decide, and remember, what does that mean for our idea of a mind? Is the octopus 8 minds connected to one? Is it a single being with distributed awareness? Where exactly does thinking happen? In our species, the mind feels centered. We point to our heads when we speak of thought, but an octopus may not think in such a central way. Its awareness seems to live in multiple places at once. Each arm interacts with the world semi-independently, yet all are part of the same body, responding to common goals and shared needs. Some researchers suggest that the octopus might be the closest thing on Earth to an alien intelligence, not because it is strange for the sake of strangeness, but because it evolved so differently from us. Its mind is not confined. It is not shaped by the same limits. The octopus rewrites our assumptions about what a mind must look like. It shows that intelligence is not always housed in a skull. It does not need a backbone or a long childhood. It does not require speech or shared ancestry. It can emerge in soft limbs, in flexible systems, in creatures that live alone in the dark. The story of the octopus arm is a quiet challenge to everything we think we know about consciousness. Each arm reaches, decides, and remembers. Each arm listens to the world in its own way. And yet, the animal as a whole moves with intent as one, shaped by a unity we do not fully understand. Far below the waves, where colors begin to fade and shadows stretch long across the seafloor, they're live creatures that can vanish in plain sight. They have no shells, no claws, no thick armor to keep them safe. Instead, they wear the sea itself, changing their shape, texture, and color in the blink of an eye. Cephalopods like octopuses, squid, and cuttlefish are masters of disguise, able to disappear into coral, sand, rock, or open water with astonishing ease. For a long time, scientists believed this camouflage was simply a reflex, something automatic. Light hits the skin, nerves fire, colors shift, a built-in response like a blink or a sneeze. But as researchers looked more closely, they began to notice something strange. Cephalopods were not just matching their background, they were making choices, and those choices often seemed deliberate. A cuttlefish hovering near a patch of seagrass does not only take on the green tones of the leaves, it aligns its body to the direction of the blades. It forms small ridges along its back to mimic the plant's texture. If one side of its body faces sand and the other faces shadow, the animal can display two completely different patterns at once, one for each half. That is not reflex, that is awareness. This awareness is not driven by sight alone. Cephalopods have powerful eyes, yes, but they also seem to gather clues from memory and experience. In laboratory tests, octopuses placed against unusual backgrounds do not always try to match the exact color. Instead, they sometimes select patterns that resemble habitats they have seen before. It is as if they are choosing a strategy, not just responding to light. To understand how they do this, we have to look beneath their skin. Cephalopod camouflage depends on special cells called chromatophores. These tiny sacs of pigment are controlled by muscles and nerves. When the muscles contract, the sacs expand, showing color. When the muscles relax, the sacs shrink, hiding it. But that is only the beginning. Below the chromatophores are other cells called iridophores and leucophores. These reflect and scatter light, creating shimmering effects or adding brightness. Together, these layers give the animal incredible control over its appearance, not just color, but brightness, contrast, and pattern. And the control is fast. A cuttlefish can shift from pale sand to dark rock in less than a second. This ability might still seem mechanical, a series of switches flipped in response to surroundings, but new studies have shown something more. When researchers recorded neural activity in cephalopods during camouflage, they found signals that pointed to higher brain involvement. Decisions about pattern and timing were not just coming from the spinal cord or peripheral nerves. They were coming from the central brain. That central brain, large for an invertebrate, sits between the eyes and processes a surprising amount of visual information. It maps the environment, evaluates threats, and selects responses. In some experiments, octopuses exposed to multiple types of threats, like a predator above and an obstacle nearby, appeared to weigh which one posed greater danger before deciding where and how to hide. In one case, a cuttlefish placed against a checkerboard floor shifted into a disruptive pattern, but when the pattern was flipped upside down, The cuttlefish paused, then changed to something completely different. It had not just copied the new background, it had evaluated it, then made a new choice. The pause mattered. That moment of stillness suggested something beyond instinct, a decision. This kind of behavior has led some scientists to ask, is camouflage a form of thought? If an animal can scan its surroundings, compare options, and alter its response based on memory or context, then where do we draw the line between instinct and intention? Unlike chameleons, whose color changes are slow and linked to mood or temperature, cephalopods change with purpose. Their camouflage is tied to survival, but also to social signaling, hunting, and even play. A squid may flash stripes to warn off a rival, then fade into gray the moment danger passes. An octopus might spread dark circles to mimic eye spots, fooling a predator into thinking it is being watched. All of this points to a remarkable kind of intelligence, not just in what these creatures do, but in how flexibly they do it. They are not reacting in the way a shadow reacts to light. They are choosing, adapting, responding. Their skin becomes an extension of their mind, a living screen that displays their thoughts without sound or words. And as they vanish into the reef or ripple across the ocean floor like drifting kelp, their choices leave no trace. Just the quiet echo of a mind that thinks in color, texture, and shadow. Far below the reach of the sun, in the slow twilight of the sea's quietest depths, some creatures still find time to do things that serve no obvious purpose. A dolphin pauses in mid-water and exhales a gentle stream from its blowhole. But this breath is not meant for speech or survival. It forms a perfect ring of bubbles. The dolphin watches it spin and drift, then nudges it with its rostrum, sending the circle swirling into a new shape. Another dolphin joins, and they take turns spinning and reshaping the bubbles, never biting or bursting them, just playing. The rings do nothing. They are not food. They are not threats. They are just fascinating. For a long time, scientists struggled to define what it meant for an animal to play. Some believed play was only something children did. Others thought it had to involve learning or rehearsal for adult behaviors. But as more species were observed in the wild, researchers began to see something else. That play was often what happened when needs were already met. When danger was distant, bellies were full, and the world felt safe enough to explore just because. In the open ocean, that space for play can appear among the most intelligent creatures, not in shallow pools, but sometimes in the very deepest realms. Though rare, these moments flicker in places no one expected to find them. Near the seafloor, a cuttlefish hovers beside a discarded bottle that has tumbled down from a distant world above. The object is smooth, foreign, and brightly colored. The cuttlefish slowly circles it, pulsing its skin through changing patterns of light and shadow. It does not strike or flee, it simply watches. Later, it will reach out with a single tentacle and tap the bottle's rim. A few minutes after that, it will turn upside down and watch the light catch on the curved plastic. Nothing happens. Still, it stays. This is curiosity in its purest form, not driven by hunger or fear, but the need to know what something is, even when the answer serves no practical end. For the cuttlefish, curiosity takes on a visual language. Its skin, layered with pigment sacs and reflective cells, ripples with complex messages, a flicker of warning, a pulse of attention, a swirl of indecision. These color shifts mirror its inner thoughts. When something unexpected enters its world, its body responds like a mind painting across skin. This is not automatic. It is expressive. Play, in deep-sea species, does not always resemble what we know on land. There are no trees to climb, no wide fields to race across, but the ocean has its own playgrounds. Swirling eddies, patches of floating kelp, volcanic rocks venting warmth into the cold. Here, an octopus might jet through bubbles for no reason other than the joy of motion. A Dumbo octopus, its fins fluttering like soft ears, may drift and spin in slow pirouettes, its gelatinous body undulating like a dancer. These behaviors are not seen all the time. In fact, they are rare. The deep sea is not a forgiving place. Energy is precious. Food is unpredictable. Every movement must be weighed against survival. And yet, even in these harsh places, some animals still find space for unstructured action. They still poke at new things. They still experiment. In a laboratory tank, a veined octopus was once given a clear tube with two openings and a live crab inside. Instead of rushing to grab the food, it studied the setup first. Then it tried the short end, found the crab just out of reach, and retreated. It circled again, found the longer opening, and gently slid an arm down the tube until it made contact. But instead of pulling the crab out, it simply held it for a moment, a silent pause, as if testing the limits of the container. Only after this moment of stillness did it draw the crab into its grip. This kind of exploration shows something more than instinct. It suggests imagination. The creature is not just reacting, it is testing, waiting, thinking. To imagine is to picture a world that does not yet exist. A crab that can be caught in a new way, a shell that could become a shield, a pattern of bubbles that becomes a toy. These are small things, perhaps, but they require a mind that can move beyond the present moment, a mind that can entertain what if. In this way, the ocean becomes more than a place of survival. It becomes a space of questions, of idle moments filled with movement, experimentation, and wonder. Play does not make these creatures intelligent. It reveals the intelligence that was already there, waiting beneath the waves. Far below the sunlit waves, in the still, crushing dark of the ocean's depths, survival depends on adaptation. Here, tools are not scattered across the landscape like in a forest or savanna. There are no stones to chip or branches to break. Most creatures are soft-bodied. Many are blind. To build anything useful, you must first find it, and that alone is rare. Yet somehow, even here, tool use has found a way. In shallow waters, scientists once filmed a veined octopus doing something strange. It had found a pair of coconut shells, discarded and halved. One by one, it stacked them, carried them across the seafloor, then curled up inside. It looked awkward, even clumsy, as it shuffled along with the shells tucked beneath its arms. But what it did was deliberate. The octopus used the coconuts as armor, creating a portable shelter it could deploy in open territory. This was not just manipulation, it was planning. True tool use requires more than curiosity. Many animals will explore objects, turn them over, tap them, or even stack them in idle play. But using an object to achieve a specific goal, and especially planning its use for a future need, marks a different kind of thinking. It is not only reaction, it is intention. The coconut-carrying octopus showed not just foresight, but creativity. It carried the shells without using them immediately. This meant it had to recognize their potential value for protection, not in the moment, but in a moment yet to come. In a place where shelter is rare and danger can come from any angle, that kind of preparation makes the difference between life and death. There are other signs of this deep awareness. Some octopuses have been observed gathering rocks and shells to build barriers around their dens. They wedge objects into the opening to reduce the size of the entrance, creating a tighter seal that makes it harder for predators to slip in. This is not decoration or random piling. The materials are selected and arranged based on size and function. In other cases, the line between manipulation and tool use grows thin. One octopus was filmed repeatedly, stacking scallop shells near its den. Over time, it began using these shells not just as shields, but as traps, directing prey toward openings it could ambush. The behavior took weeks to develop and seemed to change with each encounter. It learned by trial and error. It refined its strategy. Still, these examples are not common. Most creatures of the deep do not use tools, and among those that do, the behavior is sparse and specific. The deep sea simply does not offer the same opportunities that land or even coral reefs provide. There are no trees to shape, no pebbles to grasp. In many regions, the seafloor is soft mud, scattered with occasional shells or bones. Every tool must be discovered, then repurposed, and many deep sea animals have bodies unsuited for gripping or carrying. That is what makes the few examples so important. When a creature like an octopus overcomes all those limitations, it reveals something extraordinary, a mind not only reacting to its world, but modifying it. Scientists believe that tool use in these animals likely evolved from a foundation of complex motor control and object recognition. Before an octopus can wield a shell as armor, it must first understand how objects move in water. It must learn how to grip, how to shape its own body, and how to fit that body inside an unfamiliar object. This requires more than instinct. It requires experimentation. Some octopuses, when presented with new objects in a lab, will manipulate them repeatedly over days. They pull, twist, or hide them, but only a few go further, using them in ways that serve survival. A shell becomes a door, a rock becomes a shield. These steps suggest a spectrum from exploration to application. And yet, in all of this, there is no blueprint. No one teaches an octopus how to use a coconut. There are no parents to pass down knowledge. Each individual seems to rediscover the behavior on its own. That makes the intelligence on display all the more striking. It does not rely on tradition. It emerges from raw problem solving, shaped by need and opportunity. In the silence of the seafloor, where nothing floats freely and resources are scarce, the appearance of true tool use feels like a small miracle. It tells us that even in the most hostile places on Earth, the mind finds a way to shape the world. And sometimes, the cleverest builders are those with no hands at all. Far below the waves, in a world of drifting sand and shifting current, a young octopus peers out from beneath a rocky ledge. Its skin pulses with faint color, reacting to the rhythm of the sea. It watches. Just a few feet away, an older octopus moves with calm precision, unscrewing the lid from a clam shell to reach the soft flesh inside. The younger one stays still, eyes locked on the action. It is not guessing. It is learning. For much of history, people assumed that animals could only learn through trial and error, that without language, instruction, or structured social groups, one creature could not teach another. But the octopus challenges that view. Despite living largely solitary lives, with no family structure and no long periods of parental care, these animals still find ways to pass knowledge along. In one set of experiments, researchers placed octopuses in tanks with clear walls and gave them a puzzle. Inside, a transparent container was food. The lid could only be removed by twisting it in a particular direction. Most octopuses, when placed in this situation alone, took several tries before figuring it out. But when younger octopuses were allowed to watch an experienced one solve the puzzle first, their success rate rose sharply. They skipped the random flailing. They twisted the lid correctly on the first or second try. Somehow, they had absorbed the steps just by observing. This kind of learning by watching is called observational learning. It requires more than eyesight. It means the animal must connect what it sees with what it wants, and then use its own body to repeat the process. It requires attention, memory, and imitation, a set of mental tools once thought to belong only to primates and a few birds. Octopuses not only learn quickly, they also remember. In follow up tests, animals who had solved a puzzle weeks earlier could still recall the correct method. Even without repeating the task in the meantime, the memory stayed. This suggests that they form long term memories, holding on to lessons that may not be needed right away, but could become essential later. What makes this even more surprising is that octopuses do not raise their young. A female lays her eggs, guards them with intense care, and dies shortly after they hatch. The young are left to face the world alone, with no guidance. Yet despite this isolation, knowledge seems to spread. A young octopus that happens to witness a clever strategy can remember and apply it. In the wild, this may happen at feeding sites or near dens, where individuals sometimes cross paths. These moments, brief as they are, may be enough to spark a kind of cultural transmission, the passing of behavior not through genes, but through learning. In humans and some animals, culture is reinforced by groups. Parents teach children, elders pass down stories. But for octopuses, there are no grandparents or role models. Each generation starts anew, yet sometimes picks up the lessons left behind by chance. An abandoned coconut shell used by one octopus as shelter might be discovered and reused by another. A trick for opening a crab shell may be copied if seen once. These are tiny inheritances, not of blood, but of knowledge. Some scientists believe this scattered passing of ideas could be an early form of culture, even in a species that does not live socially. It challenges the idea that teaching must involve deliberate instruction. Instead, it paints a quieter picture, one where observation itself becomes a bridge across generations. The ocean gives few chances. Food is not guaranteed. Dangers are many. In such a place, the ability to learn from another without needing words or touch can be a powerful advantage. One action, seen once, may echo through the life of a creature that never knew its parents and will never meet its young. In this silent exchange between individuals who may never touch, who may never know each other's names or thoughts, something ancient and invisible passes forward, experience made visible, and memory made useful. In the gloom of the seafloor, where sound fades and sunlight dissolves into blue, a male cuttlefish hovers near a potential mate. His body pulses with color, wave after wave of shifting pigment rippling across his skin. On one side, his flank glows with soft, undulating patterns of attraction, a romantic display of readiness. On the other side, facing a rival male, jagged bands of warning flash like lightning. Aggression and seduction projected at the same time. Two stories told in opposite directions. To the casual eye, it might seem chaotic, but to other cuttlefish, the message is perfectly clear. This is not camouflage, it is communication, and it is delivered without a single sound. Unlike humans, deep sea creatures often live in near total silence. Sound does not travel well in the intricate crevices of coral or the dense stillness of abyssal plains. Many species, instead, have evolved languages written in light, color, electricity, and pattern. Cuttlefish, octopuses, and squid belong to a group of animals called cephalopods. Their skin is layered with special cells called chromatophores. These cells expand or contract to reveal different pigments, controlled by nerves that respond almost instantly to thought. A cuttlefish can change from pale sand to deep black in less than a second, painting its feelings, intentions, or warnings directly onto its body. But what's most extraordinary is how these signals can be tailored to their surroundings, their audience, and their needs. Recent studies have focused on the split signaling behavior of cuttlefish during mating competitions. A male trying to woo a female while warding off a rival might broadcast two completely different signals at once, divided along the midline of its body. On the female facing side, he appears calm and inviting, his patterns gentle and rhythmic. But to the competing male beside him, he flashes bold, strobing lines that signal dominance and defiance. It is a visual form of multitasking that requires acute awareness of space, audience, and consequence. This dual messaging reveals more than clever disguise. It hints at a kind of social intelligence. The cuttlefish is not simply reacting, it is coordinating. It is directing messages to specific individuals, reading the responses, and adapting in real time. In some cases, males have even been observed sneaking behind rivals while disguised as females, suppressing their male patterns until the moment is right. These are not automatic responses. They are calculated moves within a dynamic game. But vision is not the only language in the deep. In some parts of the ocean, light is rare or even absent. Down here, many species use bioluminescence, the ability to produce light through chemical reactions to signal, warn, or attract. The flashlight fish, for instance, carries glowing bacteria in pockets beneath its eyes. By blinking these lights on and off, it can communicate in short flashes, a silent Morse code pulsing through the dark. Others take it further. The deep-sea squid Octopuses delatron uses brief flashes to confuse predators, illuminating one arm at a time before detaching it like a glowing decoy. This is not just a defense, but a distraction technique, a way of manipulating attention. Even more mysterious are creatures that seem to sense and perhaps emit electric fields. Some species of deep-sea rays and knifefish navigate through electrolocation, detecting distortions in their self-generated fields to map the space around them. Scientists are beginning to suspect that, for some of these animals, electrical pulses may also carry meaning a whisper through current rather than sound or sight. The idea of electric communication is still emerging in marine science, but its possibilities are vast. Unlike light or sound, electric signals can travel through murky water and around corners, making them ideal in habitats where visibility is poor. If confirmed, these abilities would mark yet another hidden layer of intelligence in the ocean. What connects all of these strategies, from color patterns and bioluminescent flickers to electromagnetic fields, is not just survival, it is interaction. These are minds negotiating the world not with noise, but with nuance. They signal not only what they are, but what they want, what they fear, and what they intend to do next. The ocean is often imagined as silent, but it is alive with language. We simply have not learned to listen in the right ways. Not all minds speak. Some flash, some flicker, some shimmer briefly in the dark before vanishing back into the blue. And some, like the clever cuttlefish, tell one truth with the left side of their body and another with the right. In a quiet lab, under soft blue lights, an octopus rests in its tank. Its body has gone pale and loose, arms gently coiled beneath it like seaweed in still water. For a while, nothing stirs. Then, suddenly, its skin flickers with color bands of brown, white, and black flash across its body. The patterns move rapidly, as if alive on their own. The creature twitches slightly. One eye narrows, then opens again. Then the colors fade, and it settles back into calm stillness. What scientists were watching was not a random behavior. It was sleep or something remarkably close to it. For many years, researchers believed that animals like octopuses, with short lifespans and no social bonds, probably had no need for sleep the way humans or birds do. But new studies have changed that view entirely. It started with careful observation. Octopuses, especially species like Octopus vulgaris, seem to go through long periods of inactivity. Their breathing slowed, their color faded. If disturbed, they reacted sluggishly. These quiet phases were followed by sudden bursts of movement, not of their arms, but of their skin. Colors shimmered across their bodies in flashes, much like they do when the animal is awake and alert. But during these moments, the octopus did not respond to outside sounds or light. It was, for all purposes, still asleep. Researchers began to track this cycle and noticed a pattern. There were two distinct phases. One was a quiet stage, with little motion or change. The other was active, marked by twitching muscles, shifting skin patterns, and eye movements. In humans, this active phase is known as REM, or rapid eye movement, and it is strongly linked to dreaming. In mammals and birds, REM sleep is when the brain lights up with activity. It is when we imagine, remember, or play out scenes in our minds that do not exist in the present moment. Dreams, the possibility that an octopus might experience something similar, was both thrilling and puzzling. Their REM-like stage lasted about 30 seconds and happened several times during each sleep cycle. It was short, but regular. It seemed too organized to be random. And then came the most intriguing discovery of all: the skin patterns that appeared during these bursts often resembled things the octopus had displayed while awake. Camouflage patterns, mottled browns for the sandy bottom, bold stripes used when hunting, shapes seen only in the presence of predators. These memories, or echoes of them, appeared without any trigger from the outside world. In humans, dreams are often tied to memory, planning, or emotion. We revisit old fears. We practice conversations. We explore imaginary places. If octopuses are displaying hunting and hiding patterns while in this REM-like state, are they replaying scenes from their day? Are they dreaming of threats and strategies, rehearsing in the safety of stillness? It is hard to say. Octopuses are not social creatures. They do not share experiences. They do not teach their young or call out warnings. If they dream, they do so in complete silence, with no one to explain it to. But their brains are large and densely packed with neurons. Their lives are filled with problem solving, hiding, hunting, and exploration. Sleep, it seems, is not just for rest, it may be for remembering. Some researchers suggest that these REM-like stages help the octopus process its day. Others believe it could be about maintaining the complex skin muscle system used for camouflage. Still others think it could be linked to learning, especially in younger animals. Whatever the reason, it is becoming clear that cephalopods do not simply switch off when they sleep. There is something happening beneath the surface, an inner world of activity that cannot be seen but leaves flickers on the skin like passing thoughts. In a world without language or shared stories, this silent display may be the closest thing we have to watching an octopus's mind at rest, or perhaps in motion. Not awake, but not entirely still. A glimpse into a consciousness unlike our own, alive with dreams that leave no trace. In a darkened marine lab, a tiny octopus lies still within a transparent observation tank. Its breathing slows. Its skin, once a quiet gray, begins to ripple with flashes of color. First, a smooth wave of pale white, then a stuttering burst of dark spots, then stillness again, then motion once more. Not in its limbs, but in the patterns running across its body, as if the octopus is replaying fragments of memories beneath its skin. For decades, Scientists believed sleep in invertebrates was simple, if it existed at all. They lacked the brains for dreams, it was said, but that assumption began to unravel as researchers noticed strange cycles of rest in octopuses and cuttlefish. They would spend long minutes completely still, then suddenly twitch, flare with color, or curl their arms briefly before falling still again. These weren't random movements, they came in regular intervals, and always the body told a story. Recent research has taken a closer look. In octopuses, sleep unfolds in two distinct phases. One phase is quiet, the body relaxes, the skin goes pale, and the eyes stay shut. But the other phase is active, marked by rapid changes in skin pattern, eye movement, and muscular twitches. It lasts less than a minute, but returns in cycles, just like REM sleep in mammals. This discovery caught scientists' attention. In humans, REM sleep is where the brain does its nighttime work, replaying events, testing ideas, filing away memories. The question was simple: could octopuses be doing the same? To answer it, researchers began measuring brain activity. Using electrodes gently placed on the octopus's skin, they recorded waves of electrical pulses during these sleep cycles. What they found mirrored the oscillations seen in vertebrate brains. The patterns differed between the two sleep phases, one slow and deep, the other fast and jagged. These changes weren't random. They followed a rhythm, a pattern, a logic. In Cuttlefish, the story deepened. A study published in 2021 revealed that these animals also display sleep-like states with bursts of REM-like activity. While resting, their eyes would flicker, their skin would flash through rapid sequences of color changes, and their muscles would twitch in coordinated bursts. It didn't happen all the time. It came in waves, repeating in cycles lasting about 30 minutes. Each episode lasted only a minute or so, but what happened during that time looked strikingly like the behavioral markers of dreaming. The researchers hesitated to use the word dream. Dreams, after all, imply consciousness, a rich inner life we cannot directly observe. But what could be said with confidence is that the animals were experiencing phasic sleep, a state marked by neurological and behavioral activity distinct from quiet rest. And phasic sleep in humans and other animals is strongly associated with memory consolidation. That opened the door to a larger question. If octopuses and cuttlefish have sleep cycles, and if those cycles show active brain states, could they be replaying experiences from the day? Could this be the mechanism that allows them to remember, to adapt, to learn from past mistakes? It may not be language that writes those memories down. Instead, it could be patterns, sequences of movement, color, space, and outcome. A failed hunt, a successful escape, the moment of hiding in coral and watching a predator pass overhead. If such events are stored, they are likely stored without words, but not without meaning. Other studies have already shown that cephalopods can learn quickly, solve puzzles, and retain information for days or even weeks. Memory is part of their intelligence. The discovery of sleep cycles suggests a biological mechanism that supports that memory, a way for the brain to quietly organize and refine itself while the body rests. In vertebrates, sleep is tightly linked to survival. Rats deprived of REM sleep begin to fail cognitively. Birds and dolphins take turns sleeping one hemisphere of the brain at a time. Elephants sleep just 2 hours a day, but seem to do it efficiently. For cephalopods, the patterns are different, but the function may be parallel. Their brains are shaped in loops and layers, surrounding the throat like a collar of thought. They are not built like mammal brains or bird brains, yet somehow they arrive at similar outcomes. Not only behaviorally, but neurologically. Rest, processing, reset. In the quiet of the ocean, where language is unnecessary and faces unreadable, this internal cycle may be one of the most important tools for survival. A space to relive what was, to prepare for what might be, not with stories, but with shadows and flashes, with internal rhythm, with the slow pulse of learning played out behind closed eyes. Beneath the glittering surface of a tropical reef, among coral towers and carpets of swaying anemones, a small creature waits in a tunnel of its own making. Its eyes, perched on stalks, move independently, sweeping the world in constant, curious motion. This is the mantis shrimp, not a shrimp at all, not quite a mantis either, but a fierce and clever hunter that lives in a body painted with rainbows. And behind those colors, hidden in the silence of the sea, lies a kind of intelligence that science is only beginning to understand. Unlike the octopus or cuttlefish, the mantis shrimp does not change its shape or color to survive. It does not solve puzzles with flexible arms or mimic other animals to escape danger. Its world is sharper, more focused. It is a world of precision and speed, where decisions must be made in the blink of an eye, and one wrong move could mean death or hunger. In that fast-moving world, the mantis shrimp has become a master. Its eyes are among the most advanced in the animal kingdom. Where humans have 3 types of color receptors, the mantis shrimp has up to 16. Some of these allow it to see ultraviolet light, others to detect polarized light, a kind of light invisible to us, but common in reflections from water and the surfaces of shells or fish scales. Each eye is divided into sections, with parts dedicated to scanning shapes, others to tracking movement, and still others to reading colors in fine detail. With these tools, the mantis shrimp does not just see more than we do, it sees differently. When it watches the world, it collects layers of information at once: shape, shadow, color, direction, depth. It processes all of this without pause, deciding in a heartbeat whether to strike, to flee, or to hide. There are 2 main kinds of mantis shrimp: the spearers, with long, sharp limbs designed to stab soft-bodied prey like fish, and the smashers, who carry clubs made of hardened material tools, strong enough to crack open snail shells, crab claws, or even glass aquarium walls. The speed of their strike is one of the fastest movements in the animal kingdom. The club accelerates so quickly that it creates a tiny burst of light and heat in the water, a bubble that collapses with enough force to stun or kill even if the blow itself misses. But power alone is not enough. The mantis shrimp must predict its target's movement. It must strike not where the prey is, but where it will be. This requires more than reflex. It calls for awareness, tracking, and a form of calculation that borders on planning. These tiny predators are not acting from blind instinct. They are reading their environment moment by moment, adjusting, thinking, reacting. Their nervous systems are not large. Their brains are not shaped like ours or like those of mammals, but the efficiency of their neural circuits is astonishing. Many decisions are handled close to the eyes, with signals processed in place rather than sent to a distant brain. This allows for near-instant reactions, for hunting in narrow tunnels or through shifting light. Their design trades complexity for speed, but not at the cost of intelligence. It is a different kind of intelligence, focused, reactive, exact. Some researchers believe that studying animals like the mantis shrimp could help engineers design better sensors, faster processors, even smarter machines. Their eyes can inspire cameras that detect hidden features in light. Their strike has taught scientists about shock absorption and structural strength. But beyond these tools lies something even more fascinating, a reminder that intelligence comes in many shapes. We often look for minds like our own, creatures that use tools, or build homes, or mimic our emotions. But in the reef, in the quiet watchfulness of the mantis shrimp, there is a kind of wisdom shaped by speed and pressure and the endless dance of predator and prey. It does not speak or write or wonder about the stars, but it sees things we cannot see, knows when to wait and when to act, and moves through its world with a level of awareness that borders on the extraordinary, far below the reach of sunlight, where the water turns black and cold. The deep sea stretches in silence. It is a place of pressure and darkness, where life moves slowly or strikes with sudden speed. Food is scarce here, the currents are quiet, yet even in this lonely world, some creatures have learned to work together. In the open waters beyond the continental shelves, schools of squid glide like shadows. At first glance, they seem like solitary animals, each moving on its own through the dim water. But when prey appears, a cloud of small fish or a drifting swarm of shrimp, the illusion of isolation fades. The squid begin to act with startling unity. They fan out in arcs, driving the prey into tight balls. Some rise above while others swoop low, forming barriers that corral and trap. Their arms stretch and curl, their fins flutter in perfect rhythm. Without speaking, without sound, they adjust to each other's movements. When one darts in to strike, the others pause, holding their ground. Then another follows, then another, until the prey is scattered and consumed. This kind of coordination is not random. It is not just instinct. Studies of these hunts have revealed patterns too regular to be chance. The squid seem to be watching one another, responding not just to the prey but to the decisions of their fellow hunters. These are not chaotic feeding frenzies, they are carefully timed attacks. Elsewhere in the deep, similar scenes play out in different forms. Some predatory fish, like the flashlight fish and deep sea groupers, use signals to call in help. A grouper might spot a prey item hidden in a crevice, too tight for it to reach. Instead of giving up, it will shake its body or change color, signaling to a nearby eel. The eel, long and slender, slips into the narrow space and flushes the prey into the open, where the grouper can snap it up. The two predators belong to different species. They do not compete. Instead, they have learned to share the spoils, each using its strengths. In the darkest reaches, where sunlight has never touched the ocean floor, other forms of communication appear. Creatures here speak in light. Bioluminescence, the ability to glow, is everywhere in the deep sea. Some species flash to startle predators, others use it to attract mates or lure prey. But for a few, light becomes a kind of language. Small lanternfish, which travel in enormous schools, pulse with soft blue flashes. These patterns are not random. They follow rhythms that help individuals keep pace with the group, even in total darkness. By matching these flashes, the fish avoid collisions, maintain formation, and shift direction together, all without making a sound. Even stranger are the deep-sea squid that use photophores, tiny light-producing organs, not just to hide, but to signal. Some species can dim or brighten their glow, creating patterns across their bodies. These patterns may warn rivals, call to mates, or even guide group movements during migrations or hunting. In one remarkable case, a group of squid was observed, forming a spiral formation, each one glowing and turning in sequence. The meaning of this spiral is still unknown, but its regularity and precision suggest something more than accident. When animals act alone, their choices are guided by immediate need: food, safety, reproduction. But when they cooperate, especially across species or through complex signals, it suggests something deeper, a level of awareness that includes others, a memory of past benefits, a sense of timing and role. Cooperation, in this way, becomes a window into the hidden minds of these creatures. It shows that even in the cold and crushing dark, where resources are few and distances vast, intelligence still finds a way to reach out, to connect, to adapt. The ocean floor has no roads or signs. The deep has no fixed points, no landmarks. But these animals make their own systems not by building, but by aligning with light, with movement, with trust, shaped over thousands of generations. Not all intelligence wears a face or builds a tool. Sometimes it swims in silence, glowing softly, in a place where no one was meant to see. In the hushed silence of the deep ocean, there are no blueprints, no tools, no hands. Yet still, some creatures build, slowly, patiently, and with remarkable precision. They shape the seabed into homes, traps, and sanctuaries. These are not the towering coral reefs built by tiny polyps or the drifting webs of jellyfish, but instead the quiet, deliberate works of crustaceans. In the dark silt, under layers of pressure and time, they become architects. Take, for instance, the mud shrimp. Though barely the length of a human finger, this little creature spends much of its life digging. Using its front claws like miniature spades, it scoops and piles, reinforcing the sides of its tunnels with packed sediment. These burrows are not simple holes. They twist and branch like living mazes, with side chambers for resting and escape routes in case of danger. Some of these tunnels stretch nearly a meter in length, an impressive distance for such a small builder. The shrimp does not work blindly. It senses the grain of the sand, the flow of the current, the chemical traces left by others. When two tunnels risk intersecting, the shrimp may curve its passage away, avoiding collapse or confrontation. Its burrow becomes more than shelter. It is a map of decisions, shaped by memory, planning, and care. Farther down, in deeper waters, the squat lobster builds with a different rhythm. These creatures gather bits of shell and stone, stacking them into barricades around their hiding places. Some select materials by size and shape, choosing only the pieces that will fit snugly together. Researchers watching these lobsters have seen them return to the same spot again and again, adding to their walls, adjusting angles, patching gaps after a disturbance. In time, these shelters resemble miniature fortresses. Unlike instinctive digging, which many animals do without thought, these constructions suggest something more. The lobster adapts to its surroundings. If the current shifts or the ground erodes, it revises its plan. It does not just dig to hide, but to shape the world into something safer. Other crustaceans go even further. In parts of the Pacific, the coconut crab, a massive land-dwelling relative of the hermit crab, is known to manipulate its environment in surprising ways. Too large to fit into borrowed shells, it drags heavy objects, stones, logs, even discarded human debris to block the entrances of its underground layers. These barriers serve as both camouflage and protection. A coconut crab may return to the same spot year after year, rebuilding its shelter with new materials, remembering where it left useful tools, adjusting to the changes in the landscape. Among the most extraordinary of all builders is the decorator crab. Its shell may look like a clump of seaweed or a patch of sponge, but each piece has been carefully chosen and placed. Using its claws and a special patch of hooked bristles on its body, the crab attaches living materials to its back. It picks not only based on texture or color, but on chemical signals. Some crabs choose toxic sponges or stinging anemones, placing them like living armor to ward off predators. This form of construction is not just about shelter or structure, it is disguise, it is defense, and it requires the crab to understand both what it is and how it appears to others. That awareness, even in its simplest form, speaks of a layered intelligence. These quiet engineers of the deep do not build monuments or machines, they build to survive. But in their tunnels, walls, and camouflage, they reveal choices. They reveal learning. When a young shrimp digs a poor tunnel and it collapses, it does not simply repeat the mistake. It adjusts. It tries again. Over time, its designs become more complex, more stable. When a lobster finds that a round shell slips from its wall, but a flat one holds, it remembers. These are not rigid instincts, they are behaviors that flex and grow. The seafloor may look still, but beneath it lies a hidden world of construction and design. Each burrow and barricade is a quiet testament to the unseen minds at work in the dark. Minds that plan, adapt, and build, grain by grain, in a place where even a single scoop of sand can change everything. Far below the surface, where sunlight fades into darkness and pressure presses from every side, survival is never a solo effort. Down here, in the deep zones of the ocean, life must often reach across species lines, forming silent partnerships. Some are temporary, others last a lifetime, but each one, no matter how quiet or strange, tells a story of connection. On the seafloor, among cold black sands and curling vents, there are shrimp that cannot see and fish that cannot clean themselves. Yet together, they thrive. One such pair is the blind goby and the snapping shrimp. The shrimp, though almost entirely blind, is a gifted digger. It creates deep burrows in the sand, perfect hiding spots for both itself and its companion. The goby, with its sharp vision, becomes the lookout. The two touch constantly. The shrimp keeps one antenna resting on the goby's tail. If danger nears, the fish twitches, warning the shrimp to retreat. Then, both vanish into the tunnel in a flash of sand. This partnership is not random. It takes shape over time as shrimp and goby meet, test, trust, and learn to respond to each other's signals. Some pairs stay together for years. In experiments, if a shrimp is given the chance to choose between gobies, it often returns to the one it knows. Trust, it seems, can grow between species. Elsewhere, beneath hydrothermal vents, where superheated water gushes from cracks in the Earth's crust, stranger relationships unfold. These vents are hostile places, filled with heavy metals and toxic gases, and yet they are full of life. Giant tube worms grow in tall, red-tipped clusters, reaching up like fingers through the rising steam. These creatures have no mouths, no stomachs, and no eyes. They survive entirely because of the bacteria living inside their bodies. These bacteria are specialists. They feed on the chemical-rich waters pouring from the vent, transforming poison into food. In return, the worms provide them with shelter and raw materials. It is a quiet, invisible exchange, but without it, neither could live. Here, survival depends not on competition, but on a carefully balanced trade. In the open water, some partnerships are more mobile. Cleaner shrimp and cleaner fish hover above coral outcrops, waving their antennae or dancing their fins in an unmistakable signal. Predators approach, not to hunt, but to be cleaned. The cleaners pick parasites from their skin, clean debris from between their teeth, even nibble gently around their eyes. And when the job is done, the client swims away without harm. This dance of trust takes precision. A single wrong move could end in disaster. Yet, time after time, the pattern repeats. Some cleaner fish remember frequent visitors. Some even cheat, sneaking bites of healthy skin. But if they cheat too often, their reputation suffers. The big fish stop visiting. In this strange underwater marketplace, reputation matters. It shapes who gets fed, who gets protection, and who gets left behind. There are even more complex forms of cooperation, ones that ripple across an entire ecosystem. In the deep twilight zones, certain jellyfish drift with tiny crustaceans clinging to their bells. These hitchhikers feed on leftovers from the jelly's meals or help defend it from parasites. In return, the jellyfish's gentle pulses carry them through the water, offering transport through a vast and otherwise empty world. Some squid species have evolved bioluminescent bacteria living in light organs on their bodies. These bacteria glow in the dark, creating soft beams of light that help the squid disguise its silhouette from predators below. The squid carefully manages how much light is produced, feeding the bacteria and adjusting their numbers. The bacteria, in turn, have no other home. Their lives depend entirely on the squid's care. These systems are not random. They are shaped by millions of years of testing, failure, and success. But within them, there are flashes of something more. A shrimp reaching to find its goby, a squid adjusting its light to match the moonlight above, a cleaner fish deciding when to serve and when to sneak. These are not simple instincts. They are decisions made in context, shaped by awareness, by learning, and by subtle communication. In the vast dark of the sea, intelligence is not always a single spark. Sometimes it is a web, a network of choices stretched between creatures, a living, breathing coordination that echoes across species. Through these quiet partnerships, the deep reminds us that survival is often a shared endeavor. Even in the coldest, darkest corners of the planet, life finds a way to hold hands. Beneath the crushing stillness of the ocean's midnight zone, there are no colors, no shadows, no day or night, just pressure, cold, and silence. Yet life has not only found a way to survive here, it has found ways to think. In this world, without light, sight fades into irrelevance. Eyeless fish drift through pitch-black currents, guided by something older than vision. Sensors line their flanks, reading the faintest vibration in the water, waves bouncing off stone, the wing beat of a jellyfish, the soft ripple of something alive or hunting. And within their skulls, inside brains shaped by slow evolution, something remarkable is happening. Information is being sorted, stored, and recalled. Patterns are being noticed. Spaces are being mapped, not in color or shape, but in current and echo. In the shallows, many animals use vision to navigate, to hunt, to communicate. In the abyss, other senses must carry that weight, and when one sense falls away, others sharpen. That is not a guess. It is a principle seen across biology. In humans, the blind often develop stronger auditory processing or heightened memory for spatial layout. The brain rewires, it adapts. Something similar seems to be unfolding in deep-sea animals. In fish like the Pacific hagfish and certain species of cusk eel, researchers have observed unusually dense clusters of neurons in regions associated with mechanosensation, the ability to feel movement through water. Some of these brain regions appear enlarged relative to those of their shallow water relatives, suggesting that information about pressure, water flow, and motion has become central to how these creatures experience the world. In a study published in the journal Brain, Behavior, and Evolution, scientists dissected the brains of several deep-sea species and found unexpectedly well-developed cerebellums, the part of the brain that helps coordinate complex movement and balance. This may seem counterintuitive in such a slow, drifting environment, but it begins to make sense when you consider what movement means in the dark. Without vision, navigation becomes a form of memory. A fish might pass through the same canyon multiple times, using flow patterns and chemical gradients like a mental trail of breadcrumbs. Every twist and turn of the terrain must be remembered by feel alone. Cephalopods, as always, complicate the picture further. The vampire squid, a denizen of the oxygen-poor deep, carries a brain far larger than most animals of its size. Its arms are lined with tactile sensors, and it responds to subtle cues in the water that most other creatures would never register. Even in species adapted to extreme low-energy lifestyles, brain mass remains high. Why invest so much in a brain when so little stimulus reaches it? The answer may be that intelligence is not a luxury in the deep, it is a requirement. Without vision or sound, recognition must come from sequence and timing. A vent might pulse heat at regular intervals. A trail of chemicals might fade at a measurable rate. To navigate this world, a mind must be able to anticipate, to remember where warmth once was, and predict when it will return. It must learn from very little and hold that knowledge for a long time. And so, in these dark habitats, cognition begins to look different, less like language or logic and more like rhythm and response. Memory becomes a kind of map. Space is measured not by sight lines, but by how long it takes to get from one current to another. Thought becomes something fluid, not rigid, but distributed. In octopuses and squid, many of the neurons are located not in the head, but in the limbs. Each arm can process information independently. If you sever an arm, it will continue to respond to touch and even attempt to grasp. In some ways, this mirrors the decentralization of deep-sea awareness. Intelligence moves outward, becoming a net instead of a node. The ocean floor is littered with creatures that appear still, almost empty, but stillness can hide complexity. Pattern recognition, problem solving, and adaptation emerge here not in flashes of brilliance, but in slow, quiet moments. A fish learning the safe way through a rocky trench, a squid adjusting to a new flow of current, a brain evolving not for language or light, but for the patience of endless dark. Not all minds are built like ours. Some are shaped by silence, by cold, by the soft touch of a current against the skin, and in those alien conditions, awareness still finds a way to grow. Not through words, not through mirrors, but through movement, memory, and the long, unbroken thread of experience. In the shifting twilight of the sea, where shadows stretch long and currents whisper secrets, a cuttlefish hovers just above the sand. Its body shimmers with light, not just randomly, but in a sequence. First, a stripe ripples from head to tail. Then, a patch darkens near the eye. Along its back, a wave of color flows like a breeze caught in silk. Another cuttlefish watches nearby, and in an instant, it responds. A matching ripple, a mirrored pulse. No sound passes between them, no touch, no movement of the mouth. But something has been said. Cuttlefish and squid do not speak as we do. They have no tongues to shape words, no vocal cords to hum, no lips to whisper. Yet they hold conversations in light and skin. Their bodies are their voices, and their muscles paint meaning. These animals possess a kind of skin that is almost magical. Beneath the surface are cells known as chromatophores, each filled with pigment. Tiny muscles expand and contract these cells, revealing or hiding their color: yellow, red, brown. When arranged in patterns, they form language, not one shaped by grammar or syntax, but by timing, contrast, and rhythm. Beneath these pigment cells lie iridophores and leucophores, layers that reflect and scatter light, adding flashes of iridescence and glowing white. The result is a skin that can speak in waves and flickers. Some patterns are used for camouflage, others for warning, but a special few seem crafted for something more interaction. Among cuttlefish, for instance, researchers have observed what look like back and forth exchanges. One individual will flash a certain pattern, then pause, the other responds with a different display. Then the first changes again. The sequence repeats, and slowly the animals shift positions, circling, watching, signaling. These exchanges occur during courtship, during conflict, and sometimes simply when two individuals meet. It is not just the presence of color, but the control of it. Some cuttlefish will split their bodies down the middle, showing one pattern to a potential mate and another to a rival male. It is like sending two messages at once, each aimed at a different recipient, each tailored to a different goal. The level of awareness this requires suggests more than simple instinct. It hints at a kind of strategic communication. Squid also use this visual signaling, especially during social gatherings. In large groups, they flash stripes, pulses, and bands of color. These displays can spread rapidly through the group, like a school of fish turning in perfect sync. Some of these patterns are known to reflect mood or intention, agitation, invitation, readiness to mate. Others remain mysterious. Scientists studying these creatures from submersibles or in controlled tanks have tried to catalog the meanings, but the dictionary is still incomplete. What makes this form of communication so remarkable is its speed and subtlety. A human face can make expressions, but only a few at a time. A cuttlefish can change its entire appearance in a fraction of a second, from soft spotted to sharply striped, from calm earth tones to sudden strobing bursts. This allows a complexity that, while not verbal, is rich in meaning. Some researchers have begun to compare these exchanges to the early steps of language evolution. Not language in the human sense, with symbols and grammar, but the deeper idea of one mind trying to shape the behavior of another, of sharing inner states, of influencing choice. In humans, language is built on a shared code. A sound or shape stands for something else, and both sender and receiver must agree on what that something is. In the ocean, this agreement may also exist, but in another form, perhaps in the shared experience of pattern, motion, and light. Perhaps in a pulse of stripes that says, I see you, or a gentle fade of color that means, I am not a threat. We may never fully understand these luminous conversations. Our eyes are not trained to track every flicker. Our minds are shaped by words, not waves of pigment, but what we glimpse in the dance of these animals is a kind of message carried by the body itself, not shouted, not whispered, but lived in every shifting hue. In the deep sea, where sound does not travel well and darkness reigns, light becomes language. It flickers, it flows, it remembers, and for creatures born into silence, it becomes a way to be known. In the quiet reaches of the sea, where words have never existed, the mind still speaks. It speaks in motion, in color, in patterns and choices, in subtle shifts of muscle and skin. These are not symbols in the way humans use them. They are not shaped by grammar or rules, but they carry meaning. They change depending on what is felt, what is known, and what might happen next. Long before anything close to language evolved on land, the ocean was full of bodies that moved with intent. A gesture here might signal threat. A flash of skin could signal interest. A sudden retreat might suggest fear or perhaps calculation. In these moments, inner states are made visible, not through words, but through action. Octopuses are solitary creatures. They do not form tribes or families, yet their bodies constantly express internal change. Their skin ripples through texture and color, even when no other animal is near. Sometimes it matches the environment. Sometimes it pulses unpredictably, as if broadcasting a private tension into the water. Scientists believe this shifting canvas may reflect emotional states like curiosity, agitation, or alertness, and though we cannot decode it precisely, we can see it happen in real time. Some behaviors hint at even more layered forms of expression. Off the coast of Australia, male cuttlefish gather each year to compete for mates. The competition is fierce, and size often determines access, but not always. In several documented cases, smaller males have used a strange strategy by contorting their bodies and controlling the chromatophores on their skin. They present themselves as females to nearby rivals, while continuing to court actual females with flickering signals on the other side of their bodies. One display for deception, another for desire. A split self communication evolved not through language, but through the language of skin. This ability to present conflicting messages at once, tailored to different viewers, suggests a grasp of context. It also hints at theory of mind and understanding that others see and can be fooled. But these moments are not confined to mating rituals or dramatic escapes. Often, they emerge quietly. A coconut octopus might gather shells not just to hide, but to carry with it, clinking and bumping together like strange tools of armor. The act itself is impressive. But what's more telling is when the octopus holds back. If the environment is open and safe, it does not bother with the shells. If predators are nearby, it moves with them tucked under each arm, like a knight with its shield half drawn. That selective behavior implies something beyond reflex. It implies evaluation, a weighing of need against effort. In the Pacific, blanket octopuses have been seen gripping the stinging tentacles of jellyfish, brandishing them like whips. These animals do not grow venom of their own, but they borrow it. They do not eat the jellyfish. They only use the dangerous parts, gripped with care, and only in specific contexts. There is no language in these actions, no cry of threat or chant of ownership, only gesture and timing and the shape of intent. Farther from shore, deep-sea squid, like Octoputus delatron, have shown another kind of decision-making. When under attack, they sometimes release a glowing piece of their own arm, letting it twitch in the dark like bait. The predator follows the wrong trail, and the squid escapes. But this trick is not used every time. It is costly. The arm takes energy to regrow. The choice is calculated, shaped by circumstance, not habit. In some ways, these behaviors resemble early forms of symbolic action, a gesture that stands in for something else, a movement that carries consequence. And while these creatures do not speak or write, their actions point towards something ancestral, a form of communication built not from sounds, but from state and signal. Remote operated vehicles stationed in the deep have recorded octopuses clearing rubble around their dens, dragging stones to build small barricades, not for camouflage, not for play, possibly to guide prey or keep intruders out. One camera even caught an octopus gathering silt into a ball and hurling it toward a passing fish. The movement was deliberate. The fish veered away. Whether that counts as warning, annoyance, or something else entirely, we cannot yet say. But in that arc of mud, in that single slow gesture, a thought was made visible. Language is not always sound. Sometimes it is the rhythm of limbs, the stillness before a strike, the color of the skin at rest. In the sea, minds exist that do not speak, but still find ways to shape the world around them, not with words, but with presence. In the tangled forests of Papua New Guinea, a crow stands on a branch holding a thin twig. It isn't eating it or playing with it. Instead, it pokes the twig into a crevice in the bark. After a few careful movements, it pulls out a grub. This bird, known as a New Caledonian crow, made the tool itself. It had shaped it from a leaf stem just moments earlier, and it knows how to use it with surprising precision. Thousands of kilometers away, off the coast of Mozambique, a bottlenose dolphin carries a sponge on its snout. It dives, using the sponge like a glove to stir up the seafloor and search for buried fish. Not all dolphins do this. It is a skill passed down through generations, mostly from mothers to daughters. Deep in a tropical rainforest, a young chimpanzee watches her mother break open nuts using a stone. She tries too. Her first attempts are clumsy, but over time, she gets better. She understands that certain rocks make better tools than others, and that placement matters. Eventually, she will teach her own offspring the same method. And then, under the waves near the Philippines, a small octopus rearranges pieces of broken coral around the entrance of its den. It pauses, then it reaches for a smooth shell, flips it over, and places it beside another. Slowly, a barricade takes shape. There is no script, no training, just quiet purpose. These creatures could hardly be more different. One breathes air, another has gills. One flies, another glides through water with no bones at all. They are not neighbors on the evolutionary tree. They are distant cousins at best, separated by hundreds of millions of years, and yet they share something rare and strange, signs of intelligence. It is not the kind of intelligence that shows up in classrooms or takes the form of language or writing, but it is intelligence all the same. It reveals itself in planning, in tool use, in cooperation, in memory, and even in the ability to recognize oneself or another's point of view. These scattered sparks of insight appear across species that do not share a common path. Scientists call this convergent evolution, the same solution arising in very different places. For a long time, intelligence was seen as a human trait, with a few exceptions given to our close relatives. But as the methods of science improved, as patience grew and observation deepened, that belief began to shift. Corvids, such as crows, jays, and ravens, began to solve puzzles that would stump young children. Dolphins demonstrated empathy and self-awareness in mirrors. Chimpanzees grieved, planned ambushes, and passed on culture. And cephalopods, the soft-bodied, short-lived, water-dwelling invertebrates, began to surprise everyone. Their intelligence is of a different flavor. Octopuses, for instance, have most of their neurons not in their brain, but distributed through their arms. Each arm can explore, taste, and react almost independently, yet still coordinate with the others. This distributed brain model is unlike anything found in birds or mammals. Still, the outcomes can be similar. Problem solving, escape artistry, clever hunting tactics, and even curiosity. Why does intelligence bloom in such different lineages? The answer seems to lie in pressure, not physical, but environmental and social. Creatures that live in changing environments, that face varied challenges, or that must compete with others, often benefit from flexible thinking. If the world keeps changing, instincts alone may not be enough. Adaptability becomes key. In some cases, social complexity may also drive intelligence. Animals that live in groups may need to track relationships, understand hierarchies, or form alliances, but cephalopods challenge that idea. Most octopuses are solitary. They do not raise young or live in families. Their intelligence likely arose not from social demands, but from navigating complex, dangerous environments filled with predators and prey. They need to remember hiding spots, recognize traps, and manipulate their surroundings. In their world, quick thinking means survival. So intelligence, it seems, is not one path but many. It is not tied to a single body shape or nervous system. It is not the result of one moment in history, but a response that keeps arising when the conditions are just right. When the pressures of life call for something more than reaction, when they demand creativity, planning, or even a touch of curiosity, intelligence finds a way. And when we watch these creatures solving problems, exploring, adapting, we are not just seeing clever tricks. We are seeing reflections of a deeper pattern, written not in our image, but across the fabric of life itself. For much of human history, the deep sea was a mystery so complete that it may as well have belonged to another planet. People imagined it as a place of silence and stillness, a cold black void where strange creatures drifted without thought or purpose. The deeper the water, the more lifeless it was assumed to be. It was too far, too dark, and too different. Without light, without speech, without the cues we use to sense life, we mistook quiet for emptiness. The animals down there did not blink or call or build nests. They did not leap or play on the surface. Most had soft bodies, no bones, and faces that revealed nothing. It was easy to look at a jellyfish or a snail drifting through the blackness and imagine there was no mind behind the motion. Even when deep-sea creatures were brought to the surface in nets, they often arrived crushed or lifeless, their strange shapes collapsing under the sudden change in pressure. What little we saw of them made them seem fragile and passive, more like drifting objects than living beings. But the truth is not so simple. The deep ocean is not empty. It is not still. It is alive in ways we are only just beginning to see. It started with new eyes. Cameras that could withstand crushing pressure were sent into the depths, hanging from long cables or fixed to submersible robots. These cameras did not blink. They did not surface. They waited, and in time, they captured moments no one had seen before. A six-armed octopus carefully arranging rocks outside its den, a deep-sea squid curling its arms tightly around its body, guarding tiny, translucent eggs. A fish watching the camera, staying just far enough away to observe without being seen. The footage arrived grainy, slow, often interrupted by clouds of silt, but it showed something unmistakable. These animals were not drifting through life. They were making choices. They were solving problems. Later came more refined tools. Sensors were added to monitor temperature, salinity, light, and motion. Some were embedded in artificial bait or small mechanical crabs. Others floated freely, waiting for a curious animal to approach. These tools showed that many deep-sea creatures responded differently to different environments. They learned where food would appear. They returned to familiar spots. They changed their behavior after failed attempts, adjusting their strategies the next time. In the waters off the coast of California, a deep-sea researcher watched footage of a vampire squid, a creature that lives in some of the ocean's most oxygen-poor layers. It moved slowly, curling its webbed arms around itself, not to flee, but to appear larger and less edible. It had no need for speed. Instead, it used a kind of stillness as its defense, a strategy shaped by scarcity and shadow. Elsewhere, deep-sea crabs learn to gather around artificial lights left by researchers, using the brightness to find prey that would normally stay hidden. One species of snailfish, living miles below the surface, was found to care for its young in burrows. The parent would return to check the site regularly, a pattern that looked nothing like the cold instincts once assumed of life at those depths. Many of these behaviors were not visible in lab tanks. Pressure changes, light levels, and space limitations distorted the animal's natural responses. It was only by watching them in place, under the crushing weight of the ocean, in the slow rhythms of their world, that the patterns began to emerge. The more we watch, the more we find. Even now, we have explored only a tiny fraction of the deep sea. Most species remain unnamed. Most behaviors remain unstudied. The creatures of the deep are not silent. We have simply lacked the tools to hear them. There are questions that still drift unanswered in the currents. What kind of memory does an octopus use to map its territory across the seafloor? How do squid communicate in darkness using subtle waves of light and color? Can jellyfish detect and respond to long-term changes in their environment, or even learn? The technology grows more delicate, more sensitive, cameras that glide on their own, robots that mimic the movements of marine animals, acoustic signals soft enough not to disturb. Slowly, like shapes emerging from a clouded dream, the hidden minds of the deep are taking form. And with each new glimpse, the story changes. The deep is not a void, it is a world of thought without language, of memory without maps, of intelligence that wears no familiar face. Beneath the crushing silence of the ocean's deepest layers, a quiet revolution has taken shape, not just in biology, but in design, in movement, in how we think about intelligence itself. While the human world has long looked upward for inspiration to birds for flight or to the stars for wonder, some of its most forward-looking ideas are now being drawn from far below, from creatures that live in darkness, move without bones, and think without a central brain. Take the octopus. Its arms glide with a grace that no machine has ever truly matched. They bend, twist, reach, and hold not with stiff joints or hinges, but with a soft strength that flows through every inch of their muscular length. Each arm can act on its own, processing touch, pressure, and texture without needing to wait for signals from the brain. An octopus does not simply control its arms. In many ways, it is its arms. The nervous system is distributed, not centralized. Thinking, sensing, and acting happen all at once across a body that is less like a machine and more like a fluid mind. Engineers watched and took notes. Traditional robots, the kind used in factories or on assembly lines, are rigid. They are built for precision, not delicacy. They move like tools, not like creatures. But in the deep sea, where pressure crushes metal and life moves through narrow, unpredictable spaces, softness is not weakness, it is survival. Scientists began crafting new materials that could stretch, coil, and flex without breaking. Polymers that mimic muscle, skins that change texture, tubes that twist like tendons. The first soft robots emerged in labs like living experiments. They had no hard skeletons, no gears, no bolts. Some could squeeze through gaps smaller than their own heads. Others gripped objects as fragile as a jellyfish without causing harm. One robot, modeled after an octopus arm, could swim using gentle pulses and grasp delicate items with quiet control. But it wasn't just the movement that caught researchers' attention, it was the mind behind it. Cephalopods like octopuses and cuttlefish do not rely on a single, central brain the way humans do. Instead, their nervous system is spread throughout their body. Each arm holds clusters of neurons, mini processors, in a way capable of sensing and reacting locally. This gave rise to a new idea in computing. What if machines could think more like octopuses? In the field of artificial intelligence, most systems today still depend on a single core processor, a kind of brain at the center. But in nature, especially in soft bodied marine life, intelligence is often shared. It flows, it adapts. Researchers studying cephalopods began designing systems with multiple nodes of processing, where decisions could be made at the edges of a network rather than the middle. This distributed computing model makes machines more resilient, faster to respond, and better able to adapt to changing conditions. Now imagine sending a robot into a collapsed building or a sunken shipwreck. There may be no clear path, no map, no light. A rigid machine would stumble, freeze, or fail. But a soft robot, inspired by the octopus, could feel its way through, adjusting its shape in real time, thinking with its body. If it loses part of itself, the rest continues. It does not wait for instructions, it adapts. The same principles are now reaching into the design of autonomous explorers, machines built to map the seafloor, study fragile reefs, or even venture onto other planets. By combining soft bodied movement with cephalopod style intelligence, these devices are becoming more independent, more aware of their environment, and more capable of surviving the unknown. Some developers are even applying these ideas to artificial skins for robots' layers that can sense pressure, moisture, and temperature, much like the sensitive arms of a squid. Others are using the camouflage abilities of cuttlefish to inspire surfaces that can change color or texture in response to surroundings. A robot that can blend into its environment is not just stealthy, it is safer. It disturbs less. It listens more. All of this has grown from watching creatures that once seemed alien, from recording how they move, how they explore, how they make decisions without words, without rules, and without bones. The deep sea, with its strange and ancient minds, has quietly become a blueprint for the future. Are we biased toward human-like cognition? What cephalopods teach us about alternate forms of mind, rethinking intelligence as a spectrum, not a hierarchy. For much of human history, intelligence has looked a certain way. It has had a face that looks like ours, a body that walks upright, a voice that speaks in sentences. We've defined it through language, through logic, through the ability to build tools or pass along culture. In doing so, we've quietly drawn a line placing ourselves at the top, with other animals measured by how closely they resemble us. But in the depths of the ocean, in a world without speech or fire, a very different kind of mind has been growing. Not in a primate, not in a bird, but in a creature that glides through water with no bones at all. The octopus, the cuttlefish, the squid, cephalopods, as they are called, do not fit the picture we've drawn of what a smart creature should be. They have no family groups, no spoken words, no shared songs or stories. And yet, they solve problems. They escape tanks. They mimic their surroundings with astonishing speed. They open jars. They learn when a young octopus is placed in a tank with a puzzle it has never seen before, it will approach it with care. It may hesitate, reach out, test, retreat, try again. It explores not with panic, but with patience. It remembers. Some have even learned by watching another octopus solve a problem nearby. But what makes these creatures so unusual is not just their behavior. It is how they behave in a way that feels intentional, not instinctive, not robotic, something else. Scientists once resisted the idea. Intelligence, after all, was supposed to follow a certain path. It was supposed to evolve in social creatures, in animals that relied on group dynamics and long childhoods, in warm-blooded species with big brains and even bigger lifespans. Cephalopods break all of those rules. They live short lives, often just a few years. They have no tribes or herds, and their brains are structured in a way that seems completely foreign. Most of their neurons are not even located in their heads. Instead, they are spread across their arms, allowing each limb to move, feel, and even make decisions on its own. It is as if each part of the body carries a piece of the mind. The control is shared, decentralized. This is not intelligence shaped by speech or society. It is intelligence shaped by water, by shape-shifting, by a need to survive in a world of constant danger. This opens a difficult question. Have we misunderstood what it means to be intelligent? By setting ourselves as the standard, we may have looked past entire categories of thought. The octopus may not build tools like we do, but it builds dens from seashells. It may not speak, but it signals with color, with posture, with gesture. Its skin can ripple with patterns that may communicate mood or intent. It thinks not in words, but in textures, in pressures, in flows, a kind of embodied intelligence we are only beginning to understand. It is easy to mistake different for lesser. For centuries, people believed animals had no minds at all, that they moved by reflex, without thought. But as we've begun to look more closely, the world has grown stranger and more beautiful. Intelligence, it seems, is not a ladder. It is a landscape, a spectrum. Not all minds need mirrors to be real. Some reflect the world not through language, but through silence and sensation. The cuttlefish, for instance, can solve complex visual puzzles, even remembering details over days. Yet its brain is shaped more like a donut than a dome. The octopus can recognize individual humans, even after time apart, and when frightened, it does not always flee. Sometimes it watches, hides, learns, then acts. If this kind of cognition evolved in creatures so distant from us, separated by over 600 million years of evolution, then intelligence may not be rare. It may be the natural result of life exploring its own potential. Not something unique to humans or mammals, but a property that can take root wherever there is challenge, change, and choice. Perhaps the most humbling lesson is this: a mind does not need to resemble our own to be rich, or real, or worthy of wonder. The sea has always held mysteries, but some of the greatest are not hidden in darkness or depth. They are hidden in plain sight, in the very way we think about thinking. Why cephalopod intelligence is a model for alien cognition. What deep-sea ecosystems teach us about possible life elsewhere. How studying them prepares us for the unknown. In the cold darkness beneath the waves, where sunlight fades and pressure builds, strange minds have taken shape. Minds with no bones, minds that change color, minds that move through water like liquid thoughts, slipping between coral and shadow. For a long time, we thought intelligence looked like us. Then, the octopus reminded us that it does not have to. When scientists imagine life beyond Earth, they often begin by imagining Earth without humans. They think of what came before us, what lives in the most extreme corners, what breathes without sunlight, what sees without eyes like ours, what thinks but does not think like we do. In this search for the alien, the deep sea becomes more than just a part of our planet. It becomes a window into the possible. Because it is here, far below the surface, that life has learned to survive in ways that seem almost otherworldly. Some of the most surprising examples live near hydrothermal vents. These are cracks in the seafloor where heat and chemicals pour out from beneath the Earth's crust. The water here is so hot it could melt lead, yet life thrives. Tube worms, blind shrimp, and bacteria that feed on sulfur form entire ecosystems without a single ray of sunlight. These creatures live in complete darkness. They build their lives not from photosynthesis, but from chemosynthesis using chemical energy to grow, reproduce, and evolve. This kind of life was once thought impossible, but now it is part of how we imagine life on other planets and moons. On Europa, a moon of Jupiter, and Enceladus, a moon of Saturn, scientists have found evidence of vast oceans hidden beneath thick shells of ice. These oceans may be warmed by tidal forces or underwater volcanic activity, just like Earth's deep sea vents. If life exists there, it might not look like anything we have ever seen, but it might follow some of the same patterns we have discovered here at home. Cephalopods, in particular, offer a fascinating model for what alien intelligence could be. They do not rely on speech or tools. Their bodies are soft, flexible, and full of sensory awareness. Their nervous systems are distributed, with arms that act semi-independently from the brain. Their camouflage is instantaneous, controlled not just by color but by texture and light. They are artists of the environment, shapeshifters, problem solvers, and escape artists, and they evolved along a path entirely separate from ours. This shows that intelligence is not a straight line. It is not a destination that all species must reach the same way. It can emerge in strange places, from strange bodies, in strange forms. If it happened here, deep beneath our seas, then maybe it has happened elsewhere too. Studying these creatures also prepares us in more practical ways. When engineers build rovers for exploring alien terrain, they look to soft-bodied animals for inspiration. Robotic arms modeled after octopus limbs can squeeze through tight spaces and adapt to unknown surfaces. Artificial intelligence systems are beginning to draw from the way cephalopods process information, not in a centralized brain, but through parallel systems that learn by doing. These designs may be the key to surviving in environments we cannot yet imagine. The deep sea also teaches us humility. Every time we send a camera down into the dark, we find something we did not expect: a new species, a strange behavior, a glimpse of a world that has existed without us for millions of years. This reminds us that mystery is not rare. It is everywhere, waiting. We may travel across the solar system and find planets that look empty at first glance, only to discover that life, too, has found a way in some forgotten corner. By listening to what the ocean is already telling us, we sharpen the questions we ask about the stars. We stop asking only, "Is there life out there?" and begin to wonder, what kinds of minds might exist beyond our own? And just as we once looked into the eyes of an octopus and saw something staring back, something we could not easily name, we may one day look to the cosmos and recognize something else. Not by its tools, not by its language, but by the quiet logic of survival, the patience of problem solving, the echo of curiosity in the dark, in the black hush beneath 7 miles of ocean, where sunlight has never touched stone and gravity holds its breath. The oldest minds on Earth still move unseen. They build no monuments, they leave no fossils, but they shape their world with a kind of quiet intelligence we're only just beginning to notice. For most of human history, the deep was beyond reach. We sent down weighted bottles, crude trawling nets, and grainy sonar pulses. What came back was fragmentary: a dead squid hauled up in a bucket, a shadow on a screen. But now, the sea is opening to us in ways it never has before. Not because we are swimming better, because we are listening better. One of the most powerful new listeners is a ship called Ocean Explorer, a floating laboratory designed to chart the unknown. It carries submersibles that can dive thousands of meters, robotic arms that can extract samples without damage, and high-speed networks that stream live footage from the bottom of the world to scientists on the surface. But even that ship is just one instrument in a swelling orchestra. Elsewhere, NASA is preparing a robot named Brewy, short for Buoyant Rover, for under ice exploration. Originally intended to explore the oceans beneath the ice crust of Europa, it is being tested in Earth's polar seas. Brewy clings to the underside of ice, moving slowly, upside down, scanning for life in conditions almost identical to the deep. Its purpose is to learn how to search for mines in silence. Some robots no longer resemble machines at all. Soft bodied drones now drift with the currents, folding and stretching like jellyfish, their translucent skins pulsing in slow waves. Others imitate octopus arms, curling into crevices and manipulating fragile terrain with the gentleness of touch. These are not crude probes, they are mimicry, made intelligent, designed not to conquer the deep, but to blend with it. And the questions they're being built to answer are growing more intimate. Can deep sea creatures pass information from one generation to another without language? Can an octopus learn by watching another solve a problem? Do they remember? Not just for minutes or days, but across seasons? Are their social signals local, or do behaviors shift subtly from one reef system to the next, forming the faint outlines of culture? To reach those answers, researchers are turning to something long denied to deep ocean science: time. Small, long duration observatories are now being placed on the seafloor. Some are powered by compact nuclear batteries. Others tap into vast undersea cable grids once laid for telecommunications. These stations do not dive and return. They stay, some for months, some for years. They listen to vibrations. They record chemical flows. They watch the same den, the same trench, the same community through entire breeding cycles. With them come tiny neural tags, implants the size of grains of rice, designed to record internal signals from free-swimming animals. These tags do not broadcast. They store, like black boxes in aircraft. When the animal is recovered, scientists can peer into the rhythms of its inner life, its stress, its choices, perhaps its dreams. Artificial intelligence is becoming part of this work too. Thousands of hours of footage are now reviewed not by human eyes, but by deep learning networks trained to detect patterns: the flick of a fin, the angle of a jaw, the timing of a strike. What might once look like noise to us, the machine can recognize as structure. With every passing year, the ocean becomes a little less silent. It is not that the animals have changed, it is that we are finally learning how to notice what was always there. What we are seeing now are not isolated behaviors, but systems. Behaviors shaped by local pressures, decisions emerging from networks of nerve and instinct, minds not housed in a single skull, but distributed through arm and mantle, fin and flow. Minds that do not speak, but still organize, still strategize, still anticipate. No one yet knows what these patterns mean, but as new observatories light up the darkness and new tools blur the line between machine and mimic, something is becoming clear. We are no longer glimpsing the deep through brief dives and single snapshots. We are beginning to witness it as it lives. And as the years unfold, we may find the ocean not as a frontier, but as a mirror, reflecting ways of thinking older than thought and forms of intelligence that remember without words, decide without sound, and survive in places where the weight of water would silence anything else. Far beneath the waves, in a realm where sunlight fades into endless night, a quiet revolution has been unfolding for hundreds of millions of years. It has no monuments or written records, no great cities or machines. Its story is written instead in the language of movement and memory, of problem solving and adaptation, of curiosity and cooperation. It is the story of intelligence not as we once defined it, but as nature has shaped it in countless, astonishing forms. For a long time, humans believed that intelligence was something rare. We imagined it as a straight line with ourselves standing proudly at the top, measuring all other minds against our own. We told stories of clever birds and playful dolphins, of tool using primates and cunning wolves, but we still placed ourselves at the center. The deep sea was often left out of this story entirely, dismissed as a place too cold, too dark, too hostile to give rise to anything complex. It was thought to be a realm of simple creatures and primitive instincts, a desert beneath the waves. But that view was shaped by distance and by ignorance. As our eyes and instruments have ventured deeper, that illusion has quietly dissolved. The ocean floor is not a wasteland, it is a library. Every creature there is a page, and every page is written with a different answer to the same ancient question. How does a mind emerge from matter? Some of those answers are subtle. A cuttlefish hovering motionless in the water remembers when and where a prey item appeared days before, and alters its behavior based on that memory. A squid sends coded flashes of light through the blackness, synchronizing a hunt with dozens of companions it cannot see. A mantis shrimp calculates the precise trajectory of its strike in a fraction of a second, guided by vision more complex than any vertebrates. None of these actions require language or logic as we know them, but they are expressions of awareness, decision, and intention all the same. Other answers are more startling. The octopus, with its network of semi-independent arms, blurs the very boundary between body and mind. Each arm explores, tastes, and solves problems on its own, yet all eight act together with purpose and coordination. The result is a form of distributed intelligence unlike anything humans have ever built or experienced. It is as if the ocean itself had found a way to think with many hands at once. What unites these stories is not similarity, but diversity. Intelligence is not a single peak to be climbed. It is a landscape of valleys and rivers, of branching paths shaped by environment, pressure, and time. It appears wherever life has had the need and the opportunity to solve complex problems. In the deep sea, those problems are different from those on land. They involve darkness, crushing weight, scarce resources, and endless space. And so the solutions, the minds are different too. This is perhaps the most humbling truth to emerge from the study of deep sea cognition. Intelligence is not a miracle reserved for a few. It is a natural consequence of life encountering challenges and finding ways to overcome them. It is not rare. It is not fragile. It is woven into the fabric of biology itself, appearing again and again across distant lineages, from birds to cephalopods, from mammals to crustaceans. In understanding this, we also begin to see ourselves differently. The human mind is not an island. It is one branch on a vast evolutionary tree whose roots reach back into the ocean's earliest days. The way we solve problems, plan futures, build tools, and form memories is not entirely unique. It is part of a continuum, a spectrum of cognition that includes the octopus untwisting a jar, the squid coordinating a hunt, and the shrimp engineering its burrow. Their minds are not lesser versions of ours. They are parallel inventions, shaped by forces we share, but expressed in ways we can still barely comprehend. And if intelligence can emerge in so many ways here, in the depths of our own planet, what might await us elsewhere? Perhaps the most profound lesson of the ocean's hidden minds is that thought itself is not bound to a particular form. If neural networks can arise in flesh and tentacle, perhaps they can arise in ice or gas, in silicon or something stranger still. Perhaps, somewhere in the vastness beyond Earth, there are minds that do not see or speak or build as we do, but that think, in their own alien ways, just as deeply. The deep sea, once dismissed as empty and silent, is now telling us a different story. It is a story about life's ingenuity, about the many ways awareness can bloom, and about the threads of connection that run through all thinking beings. To listen to that story is to understand that we are not alone on this planet in the realm of thought. We are part of a chorus, ancient, varied, and still growing, that began long before us and will continue long after we are gone. And somewhere in that chorus, drifting in the dark waters far below, are the minds that have been thinking quietly all along.